Welcome to AXI Open Manila 2022. We've got 256 of the world's greatest AXI players all congregating here at Circuit Makati for the first time, and we can't be more excited, more thrilled to have all of these great folks with us. Thanks so much to our sponsors Sky Mavis, YGG, Blockchain Space, and Globe and GCAT.
Hi guys, Gabby Dizon here, co-founder of YGG. This is AXI Open Manila 2022. It's one of the biggest AXI tournaments ever organized by YGG, along with our friends at Blockchain Space. We have players from all over the world that are battling it out, from our YGG esports team to all of the guilds from around the world. This is just the beginning, and we're about to see a lot more exciting stuff happen in Web3 esports.
Welcome everyone, we're here in Manila 2022 playing some Axie Infinity Origins. As you can see behind me, people are getting down, they're having a good time, and if you're not part of the revolution, you need to join up now.
We are the Axie Fam! Let's go! YG the best! Let's go YG!
What's up everybody, it's Jiho. I'm here at the Axie Manila Open. The energy is super high, the turnout is incredible. I'll be here over the next couple of days. Let's see who can rise to the challenge and take home the 7 million peso prize pool.
We love Axie Philippines! Let go, baby!
Hey guys, my name is Nix. I'm the Philippine lead for Axie Infinity. So one thing that we're trying really is to make sure that it's not just Manila that's getting the attention for these big prize tournaments. We actually did a tournament last month in Cabanatuan. We called it CabsiCon. Before this event, that was the biggest. We had like 800 people, an audience, 180 players and stuff like that. So it was really exciting. We plan on going to other provinces as well, bringing Axie Origins to these provinces so more people can play and experience Axie Infinity.
Hey, what's up guys? My name is Famine Rice. I'm a Twitch streamer. Today I'm in the semifinals. I'm waiting to play my match. And overall, I feel good. The community here is like really nice. I feel confident. I hope my luck continues. Respect to everyone that made the top 16 or top 32. Like, it takes a lot of mental fortitude in order to not break from RNG, in order to not break from just exhaustion. Biggest challenge that anyone can have in a game where, random things can happen is just a little bit of luck, Sometimes you might draw bad, sometimes you might draw well. It's all about how you react to it. Don't let yourself get too down if it's not out of your control. But mistakes do happen sometimes, and when they do happen, you gotta stay strong because it's best of 5. Plenty of chances to win.
Our grand champion for Axie Open Manila 2022, a huge sweep by Spam and Rice.
The Philippine Web3 Festival closed officially, and gosh, it's been a crazy week. We had so many amazing speakers, we had so many amazing partners and sponsors. It just says so much about how the Philippines truly is at the very center of Web3, that all of this support kind of just came pouring into the country for the first time. The entire team cannot wait to see the world again next year when we do another one.
Oh, hello.
Hey guys, good morning.
Oh, there you go. Can you guys hear me? we are live. The Dono is live. Saratobi is live. There you go. Okay. Sam is live. I was muted for a bit. Sorry, guys. But yeah, GM, and happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays, guys. I'm stoked to be on here with you. Thanks so much for having us on.
For sure. So yeah, shout out to everyone who made it here tonight. We are live across the board. We are on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and for our live Q&A, guys, join us. We're on the YGG Discord. That's discord.gg/YGG. And we're at the AMA discussion channel. So we're going to be having a lot of community questions by the end of the stream. But yeah, we're back. We have another AMA, and tonight we are here with Sam, founder of Kapital DAO. How are you doing, Sam?
Oh, we are doing great today, guys. We are honestly, despite market conditions right now, I think I've never been more optimistic for the long-term future of crypto. So I'm stoked to be on here with you guys right now.
For sure. I mean, everyone's has seen the video that we played earlier. So that was actually the highlights from the very recent Web3 festival and the Axie Open Manila. I mean, we missed you there, Saratobi, but as Sam said, it's an exciting time and we're just getting started, right? Yeah, Saratobi, how's the weather over there? I heard it's pretty freezing. Is that true?
Oh, it's about -5 centigrade. So yeah, that's it.
Oh no way, that's crazy.
Slightly warmer now. It's about 0. It's balmy right now. But great to be on another show. Fantastic to be on a show with Sam as always. Me and Sam have had quite a number of these AMAs of different sorts together. So great to have Sam on one with YGG. Really excited to tell the community about what Kapital DAO is, what you guys are doing. We're lucky enough to have had all these conversations, but for those in the audience, would love to have you give a quick kind of high-level overview of what is Kapital DAO.
Yeah, of course. So YGG community and broader Twitter folks also, we're stoked to kind of bring this to you guys. What Kapital DAO is basically a series of software engineers who operate a software as a service group DAO. We build different tools for the open Web3 gaming economy. So specifically right now, we work with YGG to build a tool of ours called Heimdall, which is effectively this asset management solution for large Web3 gaming guilds and organizations. And you can kind of imagine, if you draw out the line for what Web3 gaming might look like, 5 years out from now, 10 years out from now, and you have these massive entities, these YGGs of the world who are really, like owning massive amounts of assets across games, they need consolidated finance and delegation and permission set solutions to manage all those assets. So that's one of the tools that we build over at Kapital DAO. The team is composed mostly of engineers, and we can dig into that here in a second. But I think that the point that we do want to emphasize is it is an engineering organization first. And so, bear with us if, some of our marketing takes some time to catch up to the hype here.
Yeah, I mean, it's very forgivable. Like, it's always, at least we have the tech up and running. It's always going to be the priority. And if the product is there, then people will use it, and marketing will just come organically, man. But yeah, it's really great to have you here, and we've actually prepared a few questions for you, and I'm just going to be jumping right at it. But yeah, I mean, first off, so we've also had the opportunity to talk to other tooling projects in the space. But yeah, for a Kapital DAO, like the way we see it, and also like the reason we've partnered with you guys is you're setting a different standard for what you're building here. So could you tell us more about what gives Kapital DAO the edge amongst other competitors in the space?
Yeah, there's kind of a couple of key pillars here, John. So first of all, the Kapital DAO is a self-custodial solution. And without digging into the details here too much, custody is the idea that do you hold your own assets or does someone else hold them? And so Kapital DAO has done a ton of really complicated engineering work behind the scenes to make sure that we adhere to those proper Web3 standards that everyone's used to, which is, not your keys, not your crypto, right? So we want to make sure that everyone who uses the software, their keys remain on their side and they are never exposed to the Kapital DAO, right? And so that's something that already sets us across, as very different from a number of other solutions that may require you to use, certain smart contracts or, download certain, bits of software where you store your keys in a place where they can see the keys. And so that's kind of one piece that we normally emphasize. But then even bigger than that, and this is something that we're really excited about, is the Kapital DAO software can be taken into any game on any chain to date. And the reason that is because we don't really do a lot of what I would describe as hardcore on-chain smart contract dependencies. We're not dependent on, the fact that Solana works over there in Rust and they have all these complex smart contracts. We can go deploy the software in Solana as well as in Ethereum or, over on Avalanche or potentially in a stranger chain like Algorand, et cetera. And so what we're really excited about is the ability to standardize across the entire gaming ecosystem. And so we're trying to build a single set of tools that effectively enables people to go into any of these games on any chain and deploy their assets at scale. And we think that that's one way that we can really help underscore this onboarding of massive numbers of players into Web3, because you can expect exactly the same standard in any game that you enter across the entire space. And that's the tool set that we're looking to build here at an institutional level.
I mean, I love it. Just the fact that we have basically the same ethos. Like on your website, it says that the mission is to onboard the next billion of people into Web3 and gaming, right? So, I mean, that in itself, we definitely share the same vision. And, talking about onboarding, I mean, Saratobi and, myself here, a couple of months back, maybe even sometime like last year, at the height of the influx of people into Axie Infinity, right? So we had to do all of these stuff like manually. Like we didn't have trackers that are as efficient as you guys are, what you guys are building, what we have out in the market now. Everything was done manually. Like even the custody of assets, transferring some Axies, even sending out some SLP to breed, and like we're only looking at one game right now. And like, how do you guys exactly, determine which tools you guys build out for these specific games? Especially, let's say, with some of the projects that already have some sort of tooling built in to what they're about to release. So, what's the thought process behind what do you prioritize, like in these different games?
Yeah, so we break down the different games across the ecosystem into different standardized buckets, basically. There are games that have a large number of smart contract dependencies. There are other games where you log in with an email password like Axie. And so we have each one of these bucketed neatly, and we know how to integrate each different type of game in a way where we don't even have to ask the game to add anything on their side. And that's super, super important, because that means we can go into any game environment and we can just deploy the tech right on top of what they already have without, needing to bother them for permissions or needing to ask them to add additional tech lines to their own code base, which is a huge lift for a lot of these games that have small studios, right? And so when we are kind of building out the standardized tool set that we're thinking of driving towards here and that we already have deployed, we're really aiming to build it in a way where we rely only on the barest set of permissions that have to be granted, because you always want to grant the fewest permissions possible. And we want to keep people's assets safe in a way whereby they are always storing the assets in a standardized framework that they can come to expect as being, like the standard highest quality storage framework. So for example, everything that we've done is audited multiple times. So it's audited by Aki, by Hallborn, by a full stack pen testing team that's external to those that we don't disclose. So there's a ton of work that goes into making sure that the standardization that we're shooting for works in each and every one of these games and each and every one of these chain ecosystems. And the guilds on the other side, these massive organizations that we think, over the next 5 years, as Web3 gaming continues to grow and grow and grow, as these guilds become massive asset managers, frankly, themselves, they will need a set of standardized tools to approach each one of these massive ecosystems with. And that's where we step into the equation, is here is the standardized set of tools for you. You can expect exactly the same quality and exactly the same actions in each game, regardless of what the game abstractions are on the other side.
Gotcha. And, oh, go ahead, sir.
Just really keen to chime in here, because obviously there's been so much back and forth with me and Sam in the past. I'm going to kind of zoom in on some of the things that we've spoken about in the past. And, earlier on you touched on, a Kapital DAO being a great fit for like large scale guilds, and you've referenced that like kind of large guilds, massive entities. Again, obviously, like as much as kind of big guilds are important, I envisage a world where we're going to have like thousands of or hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of micro guilds, and obviously many of the kind of YGG community and those listening may be, owners of multiple assets. How will Capital DAO cater for those users? Because arguably one might say that's a larger target addressable market.
Yeah, I mean, to date, right, one of the recent reports is that there's something like 20,000 micro guilds out there, right? There's a ton of micro guilds. The space is huge. The great news is that we build this to an institutional standard, but it is open for use for anyone. So that means that even if you're a sole operator, right, and you just happen to have, let's say, 10 axes, right, or 10 assets across 10 different games, you can use the software just as easily as a YGG or a mega guild can use, right? It scales perfectly with the size of your team. So the message that we have, out to those smaller proprietors and those micro guilds in the space is you are perfectly just as welcome to use it. And it's designed for you in exactly the same way, because the problems that micro guilds face are frankly the same problems that these mega guilds face, just on a different scale. You still have the problems of asset permissioning, managing across different games. Like, where do you store the assets in a nice visible accounting software so that you can see everything? You know what transactions you've done, you know where the permission sets lie. So we're addressing problems at a fundamental level, but in an institutional capacity, so that we can target, those massive enterprises, but we also cater to the really basic needs of every individual sole proprietor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very well said,
awesome.
man.
And a quick follow on from that one, like in terms of like users of Capital DAO, where would you be? Can you kind of release a kind of give us an idea of like the number of users you guys have right now?
Yeah. We're very sensitive about sharing user data, understandably, right? But to give you some sense of where it sits, there are, I would say, a number of the major guilds in the world are already using it. And then there are dozens of what I would call these more micro guilds who are using it, to give you a sense of the scale right now. And so each one of those guilds has between hundreds and thousands of assets. And so it's the system to date, I think, has something like 99.9654% uptime. I know that's a very strange number to remember, but I think they just computed that yesterday. And so the downtime on the system is it's remarkably low. We've done an exceptionally good job of keeping it stable to date.
That's great. Yeah, great to hear. I'm excited to see when we can start like really pumping out these numbers and having a look at the growth of use of Capital DAO. Will be an exciting thing to see.
We're working very closely with a number of external parties, actually, these kind of third-party DeFi, auditors, if you will. So groups like Treehouse Finance, groups like, folks in that direction who basically audit DAO credentials and publish them online. And what we're doing is we're actually going to be pushing basically the amount of revenue that the Capital DAO is capturing from all these services through there, so that people can monitor that in real time and really have a very transparent look into the true nature of the DAO as it evolves over time. Because our thesis is, and I think it's the same as yours, over the next 12 to 24 months, we are going to see an astronomical number of games deployed. And it will probably be the best way for individuals to onboard into Web3. Like no other sector of Web3 will come close to gaming in terms of onboarding. And we expect to be sitting kind of at that entrance, ready to get all these games into a position where tons and tons of players can join and operate assets of guilds, et cetera, across the board. And so that's, kind of where we sit, is right at that entrance to onboarding all these big games that we know are coming online in the next year.
For sure. I mean, definitely having to be able to have the vision for Capital DAO and, actually seeing or at least having an idea of, how the Web3 gaming space is going to be going in the next, in the next few months, in the next few years, you guys, we'd love to hear about, how did you actually sit down and say, this is going to be happening, whether we do this or not, this is going to be a staple. We're going to be needing tooling, we're going to be needing data aggregation across these games, across these guilds. But how did it happen? Who are these guys behind the scenes? Can you tell us more about the team? And what was that aha moment and actually saying that we have to go for this?
Yeah, of course. So it's a combination of three things I would kind of credit it to, right? So first of all, I've been working in crypto since 2017, and I worked on the institutional side of crypto, right? How do you bring assets to the big boys? How do you make sure that the giant hedge funds in the world can access assets easily and trade across different venues easily? That's some of the initial work that I started on back in 2017. I went and I worked for Goldman Sachs for a little bit, working across their equity research desks and things that institutional clients ask and need and require require in order to make, high executive decisions. And then finally, I've been a gamer my entire life. I've probably played every game that you guys can mention in the mainstream at this point. And so those three things, when we saw blockchain gaming really take off, to us, it was like, a wow, aha, like, these digital assets, these are more like real world, physical oil rigs or something than they are like, a Neopet from 10 years ago. It is a fundamentally different paradigm that we have to deal with. And because of that, we have extreme conviction, right, that over time, as value migrates into the space and the digital becomes, real in a way, it's very, very obvious to us that asset managers like guilds, frankly, will move into the space in a big way in order to both provide value and move value around inside of those ecosystems. And so that's where we saw it going. And we said, like at the beginning of all of this blockchain gaming, we expect down the road, there will be a serious number of asset managers operating what are essentially real world assets inside of digital economies. And we want to be there and be the ones to support them on that.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, definitely, man. Like, I really love how how you put it that like these games are no longer the Neopets that we had before, and we are gonna be we're talking about games across the board on different chains, and it's definitely like not an easy task to do this manually. And for sure, like I would share the same sentiments as a couple of people here right now on Discord. Like we have, we actually have a lot of our Axie managers who are also joining us tonight. I mean, some of these guys are actually at a YGG Christmas party right now, but for
awesome.
everyone else. They're actually having dinner right now, and just getting ready for the holiday season. But for everyone else who's actually tuned in tonight, I mean, like I could just remember, how many tabs, how many Excel sheets I had for, for my different teams, like for even all the other sub guilds, and like in YGG, like we do have. Right? I mean,
and John, that's only for one game, right? And
exactly.
So that's across the scope of a single game. And so we see a future, right, where it's not just Axie, and it's not just 2 or 3, even frankly. It's not just like Axie and Crypto Unicorns or something. It is like 10, 20, 30, 40 games, right? And you have to be flawlessly executing across each one of those verticals. And so that's where we build, right? As we build for that future. And frankly, we expect that future to come online here in the next 12 to 24 months.
I was going to just go kind of charging into that very topic because, you say like 40 to 50, I say hundreds. I say it could be even larger, hundreds of games potentially, and maybe there could be instances where like assets could be like functional across various different games. You might have a specific access, and maybe Kapital DAO could like create a routing mechanic to be like, oh, were you aware that you could use this asset in this game, and maybe it could kind of be like a discovery mechanism for that kind of thing as well. But what was a kind of interesting kind of thought that's going through my head, and I know we've talked about this quite a bit, is that you've got this huge challenge on your hands at Kapital DAO in terms of like with such a big proliferation of games, how are you gonna be able to like integrate such a large number of games, especially when it starts to run into like hundreds or even thousands?
Yeah, so our approach to this is basically turn it back to the community and set our backend in a way whereby there will be a public open sourced SDK, and anyone can onboard a game into the Kapital Guild app, basically on their own within 100 lines of Python or in a small YAML file. So we've actually tested this on a number of games already that we have under wraps that we'll be disclosing here in a second, one of which is like Fancy Birds and some of these other slightly easier ones. And so on these ones, right, it's actually so easy to integrate it that if a single community member was like, wow, I really wish Fancy Birds were on the thing, they could simply add it themselves. And so they can add it into the app and they can immediately start using the functions on the app. The reason this works though, is because of the way that we have, some of the custody and the back end set up. Users hold their own assets and users keep the tech on their own side. And so all that's being pushed on our end, like there's a front end that people send their requests to, and then those are processed. And so it's very, very simple to abstract, these calls sit with the user, these calls sit on the front end, and we just boil it down to the bare simplest things that are needed to operate each game essentially.
Gotcha.
That makes so much sense.
I mean, just jumping in here real quick, Jared. So before we get back to your own questions here, just really quick. So we're talking about scaling, right? We're talking about the next 1,000, 100 million, billion people getting into Web3 gaming. will Capital DAO be also usable on a personal level? Like, if I just wanted to see like all the assets I personally hold across all these games, instead of doing it manually, instead of going through my Excel sheets and everything, like I have it, I open it up, I bookmark it. Every time I turn it on my PC, it pops up and I see what's happening right now in my portfolio.
Yes, 100%. And so basically all that you have to do is, if you're using the app in that capacity, you could have each one of your games shown for you in your consolidated dashboard each time you wake up in the morning. And I'll even attack that from the other side too, which is, if you're a manager, that's great, right? That's great. You have all your assets, you can see them across all your games. What if you're a player, right? Like what if you're a small player and you just want to go out and you just want to play games? So a neat feature that we're going to be rolling out here over the next month, and YGG may or may not end up using this. I'm actually curious to see if you guys do. But it's basically the ability to have overflow scholarships, essentially. Like say you have excess assets in excess of how many players you actually have. We're going to have the ability for people to optionally post those. And what that looks like is then if you're a player, you can just go to like, capital.app, whatever, / scholarships, and you can just click a scholarship and immediately start playing it, even if you're a completely random individual. And so this is on an opt-in basis. If you're a guild and you don't have players, but you have too many assets, how do you get people to play? You just push them to a public dashboard, and anyone through our extension can very easily just click on the asset and start playing the game immediately.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So I think Saratobi's chopping off there a bit. But yeah, I mean, so before we move forward with our AMA, so we still have a couple of questions from you and Saratobi here. I just want to remind everybody who's right here on the Discord channel of YGG, and if you're watching across the board, make sure to join us for the live discussion. So don't forget, please do shoot down your questions.
I mean, obviously, here at YGG, we obviously kind of
are going to be getting to those shortly. But yeah, I mean, so I think Saratobi's back. Saratobi, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, forgive me my terrible internet connection. I actually thought it was you guys that were getting the bad internet, clearly me. Yeah, no, all I was going to say is, obviously, we're proudly kind of multi-chain utopianists here at YGG. Fantastic to hear about that. I would like to assume that that's maybe the same kind of stance that you guys have over at Kapital DAO, where you're finding yourselves kind of veering towards any kind of standout chains at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a ton of different altchains: Solana, Polygon, Avalanche, Algorand, right? Tons and tons to choose from. And the way that we're approaching it is we are completely chain and game agnostic. We are happy to work with any chain ecosystem, any game ecosystem. So, even strange smart contract platforms like Solana or Algorand will work inside of the app because it's just an abstracted front end, right? And so we're pretty stoked to be able to bring this consolidated set of standards across the entire gaming space. And so over on the Solana side, as a brief sneak preview, we're going to be turning on Genopets here momentarily in the next month or so. And so I think people are very excited.
That's a big. Please help us help us.
Yeah. People are very excited about that one.
Yeah, Jesus, that's good news. Fantastic. That's a Christmas present. That's a big leak right there.
Yeah.
For all of you people out there running Genopets scholars, Kapital DAO is coming to your rescue. Exciting stuff. Really, and I mean, on that note, I think that's what we're all waiting with bated breath. Like, what games are in the pipeline of Kapital DAO?
Yeah, so
give us all the good juicy stuff. You are on a YGG AMA.
Of course. So there will be, Genopets will be turned on at some point in the near future. Fancy Birds as well, because that's been highly requested. Beyond that, we're going to start deploying the open SDK so people can start adding the games themselves. And so the big games that you should expect us to go out to after, these initial tests, essentially in each ecosystem, right? Like Genopets is the test in the Solana ecosystem. Those ones, we're going to be looking to turn on our major partners. So big games, right? Blocklord, Shrapnel, Alluvium. These are the big guys that we expect to come in and really sweep through 2023, 2024, right? When they deploy. And so we're going to be looking to basically open up the smaller games to the community to add and request on their own. And it's going to be, kind of an avalanche of games being added because it'll be relatively easy to get them in. And then on the back end of that, you should expect the big boys to all be added. So your big shrapnels, your block lords, your alluviums, all of the really heavy hitters.
That's really awesome to see. Really awesome to hear about as well, because obviously I think so many of these games, you know, don't necessarily kind of put time and effort and focus into these areas. And I suppose it does become like a kind of virtuous cycle for you guys, that after a certain amount of traction, after you can kind of demonstrate a certain amount of users, both on the kind of guild side, on the player side, you know, suddenly it starts to become in the game's interest to have some kind of integrations with you guys. So you might hope that they'll choose to build out those integrations directly to Kapital DAO themselves. Following on from that, I mean, you've kind of mentioned the idea of like community members like actively kind of onboarding games to Kapital DAO. Is there just out of interest, is there some sort of like incentive for those kind of actions? Maybe token rewards or something? Maybe a meta game on top of Kapital DAO kind of starting to shape up?
I would love to see us have a metagame put out. That would be fantastic. But no, there will be community push token rewards. So we're going to be having ecosystem rewards out for folks who do want to, you know, add that relatively small set of scripts up to the public repo. And at that point, they'll be eligible to earn certain community rewards. Yeah. So we will be incentivizing the addition of more games.
Sedano's Hooli looks very pleased about that.
I know, he looks extremely excited.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I actually can't wait. You know, I actually can't wait to play My Pit Hooligan. But, you know, like, at the same time, like, Sharitoba, you've touched on, you know, some of these games actually, you know, not really looking at, you know, tooling as, you know, one of basically their main focuses in building out like the early iterations of their releases. I mean, you know, it's quite understandable. Like, of course, like what you want is to have your game a tip-top shape and playable. And, you know, tooling may come second, may not come second for some, may even be, you know, like maybe like 6 months, a year away on the roadmap. But I think there's a very important discussion here where there is a misconception, let's say for guilds, as, you know, that they're not really as beneficial, or there's even these discussions where, you know, guilds extract value from games more than, you know, their other players actually put in value with, you know, purchasing in-game items or whatnot. So I mean, it's totally understandable, and in terms of logic, it does make sense. But, you know, if we look at games that go way back, you know, like the early iterations, like EVE Online, the early iterations of MMORPG games, even to what we have now with the first-person shooters, like let's look at, you know, the Counter-Strike or the Valve marketplace, the Dota marketplace. I mean, there already are, you know, there are people who capitalize on, you know, on collecting assets. And, you know, even in the Web2 space, like, it's already happening, and even having to be able to delegate that on a Web2 game will require a lot of work. And, you know, I mean, we are working with products here, we are working with partners, we are working with games, with tooling that are basically our tools that will be needed, like one way or the other, whether or not, you know, there are quote unquote like DAOs or guilds who focus on, you know, like let's say like YGG for yield farming, or let's say for NFT collection or whatnot. Like there is going to be a need for it, and like the reason that's why like Kapital DAO is here, like YGG is here, is because like we see it's going to be happening either way, right? And what better way to do it than, you know, already provide, you know, all these tools that will be needed, let's say, when we go into the battlefield of Web3 games, maybe, you know, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, or maybe, you know, who knows? Like, we're just literally waiting for games to come out, and, you know, we can test out and we can onboard more and more people with. So, and having like these kinds of tools, like Kapital DAO's tooling system, it just makes everything, you know, a lot smoother, makes everything more organized, and makes life easier for gamers like us who aren't as, you know, maybe as well versed in, you know, in tech, and, you know, just basically like doing these by ourselves, right?
Yeah, John, I honestly could not agree more. I think, you know, standardization remains a huge problem in the Web3 gaming space. It is so hard for sole proprietors and even large guilds, frankly, to operate across these different gaming ecosystems, because each game is so different. And that's why it's really important for us to drive towards these set of common standards across each one of these games, no matter what chain it's on, so that then we can have this mass participation, right? Where like, there's a new game. Okay, we're ready. You know, we have 100,000, 200,000 DAUs from a collection of guilds. Everyone's ready to go in at the same time because everything is standardized. Everything is in the spot where you expect it to be. It's so, so important. And that also kind of speaks to the importance of guilds too, right? I mean, I know that guilds get a bad rap, and I've actually written extensively about this on my own personal medium, but the idea that guilds are purely value extractive is not really that logical at the end of the day. I mean, a game requires, a Web3 game in particular, requires two things, and it's users and capital to be injected into the system. And guilds provide both of those. And guilds bring users in droves, right? Like tons and tons of users. It's, in fact, if guilds existed back in the early Web 2 mobile era, I think that mobile gaming as it exists today would be a completely different space. Like the invention of this kind of larger, broader, external to the game guild community that's almost like an esports team, but not quite, because it's different than an esports team too. It's really more of an asset and player manager across an entire ecosystem. It just didn't exist in the past. And I think that people right now are unfortunately, they're not paying attention enough to the key problem in Web3 gaming and gaming broadly, which is and always will be user acquisition. You write a brilliant story, you make a brilliant game. How do you get people into that ecosystem? And guilds are the best user acquisition tool that we have in Web3.
No, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely kind of echo your thoughts there on that. You know, I think the concept of what is a guild has kind of become a little bit broken. There's this idea that this purely value extractive component to Web3 games. But when you think about it, like many games that are going to be being released, you know, with expensive assets, guilds are going to just have to be like an essential component to enabling users to be able to participate in games. It's very much down to the economy design of the games themselves, and also down to like, okay, can the games design the game in such a way that they're going to have to be good enough to attract people that want to inject capital. And unfortunately, like it's about finding that balance between allowing a game to have just enough ability to you know extract out value, but in a way that doesn't like destabilize the whole economy, because you know the value needs to be able to flow between the game and users in a way that doesn't kind of endanger the whole ecosystem. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's very much at a point where we see games need to hit a certain amount of traction and adoption. And I think arguably tooling like Kapital DAO in association with the guilds and the users, especially if it's accommodating, like, you know, like Sedano mentioned there, single one-man users, smaller micro guilds, this really is going to aid the adoption of this at a massive scale. Guilds are going to be fundamentally important in that. Once we start seeing games where, you know, maybe like some games will be designed in such a way so that there is no value extraction, but maybe, or it happens in such an organic way that like it's not going to be perceived in the same way. Maybe value is going to be created in like skins, like having organic value formed around them from a historic perspective or from a esports perspective or whatever. And you know, over time, tooling like Kapital will enable any kind of user, from a one-man person all the way up to a massive entity like YGG, to deploy assets, monitor the use of those assets, and have those assets used by players in a way that makes the playing of those much more fluid and easy to use. And that's obviously a core mission of YGG, and clearly obviously a core tenet of Kapital DAO as well. Sorry to speak for you there, but I think we're on the same page here with this, and it's a really exciting
I could not
thing.
agree more. Yeah, no, I think you've really hit the nail on the head, right? It's, you know, this is a fundamentally different asset class than we have had in any digital economy to date, right? Like the idea that you can take assets inside of a game, a fully functioning game economy, perform some set of operations. It is quite literally a paradigm shift that has implications that we cannot even guess at right now. And what we want to do is we want to be in the position to support whatever that looks like. And you mentioned things like creator guilds, which we're also hugely optimistic on. I mean, the idea that, you know, in certain game environments, you're going to have restricted access to resources because resources are expensive, but you need those resources in order to create something using human skill in some capacity, right? And bringing those two parties together will always be important. So we've looked at integrating things like the sandbox, right, which follows exactly that model. And I think that as people become more and more aware of the fact that like these are real world assets, effectively, like these things that exist in these digital game economies, these are very real assets and they have real purpose and real function. You're going to need real technology, just like we have out in the open Web 2 world, to manage these assets at massive scale. And so, yeah, we are 100% aligned there, Saratobi.
That's very good to hear. Very good to hear. And I suppose like the amazing thing is that we have yet to kind of touch on what these kind of toolings might be able to look like. You know, in the future, you know, we're seeing a lot of games shifting to like much more like NFT orientated economies where, you know, you have a collection of NFTs. These spawn a next generation of NFTs, which then, if used in a certain way, can then spawn a further generation of NFTs. I mean, again, this is like a bit of a developmental challenge for you guys, depending on how these games are structured. But assuming that you guys kind of get stuck into this, I mean, you know, the potential here is going to be really exciting. Tooling is going to be fundamentally important, and games, you know, Sedona was talking earlier about how, you know, we might not necessarily, not every single game is always going to have tooling or, you know, guild functionality on their roadmap. I think I'm envisaging a future where maybe they just won't need to. They won't need to, because other frameworking will be in place that they will have easy to use SDKs that allow them to just pipe themselves in to this platform and arguably function as a mechanism for UA or user acquisition. Forgive all the kind of industry mumbo jumbo, but like it's going to be seriously exciting. So Kapital DAO is definitely one to keep an eye on, and definitely one which is going to be kind of working very, very closely with YGG, I'm sure. And forgive me, this is definitely a subject that I'm very passionate about as well. So as someone who's run multiple guilds in the past, you know, so really pumped to see how this plays out. And Sedona, I'm sure you might have other questions as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You know, actually, I actually want to add on that. I mean, you know, like looking at, you know, the perfect world for blockchain games, right? Like of what the ethos of, you know, of crypto really is. Like ideally, you know, I could open my game and like whatever dashboard I have or like whatever assets I have in this game are also usable in other games. But I really don't, you know, I really don't see it. I really don't see a world where you have the exact same, you know, tools that you see in one game also appear on, you know, like the next game. Like what if like these two games, like you have an FPS game, you have a shooter game, and like the assets or basically like the NFTs that you use here aren't like usable at all, or like you don't even need to look at, or what if this other game doesn't even have their native token, right? So like that just doesn't make sense. But if we look at, you know, if we look at games, if we dial it back a bit, we look at games, if you look at Web2 games, and you know, we've already seen guilds pop up, and they're basically doing the same thing as what we're doing now. So you have guilds, you have a guild leader, they collect resources, you know, they fund their armies in these games. But you know, at the same time, like this guild leader is also probably playing Counter-Strike on the side, where he also owns you know, like a ton of gun skins that, you know, that aren't necessarily, you know, I mean, aren't basically usable in the Web2 ecosystem, except for that same platform, right? But if we have Kapital DAO, if we have YGG, like it just makes sense. Or you know, in the next few months, in the next few years, as these games continue to roll out, there is actually a need for this. Like we definitely need tooling, and I think that's where we come in. And it's our, you know, it's our responsibility to, you know, tell the community like how do these assets really work, or what tools are there to make your lives easier. So it is essential. Like I personally, you know, I would say like I didn't see it this way like when I started with YGG. Like it took me a while before I understood like where all these, you know, other projects, all these other tools like actually like fit in. But you know, as I've been saying, like I couldn't be pushing it about it more. But you know, like it is inevitable, and it's a matter of, you know, which projects, you know, which games, which guilds, or which tooling partners and projects are actually going to be providing, you know, like the best products, you know, the products with the most ease of access, and you know, which will be the communities using the most, right? So I think that's the question. It's not a question of when or what if, right? But yeah, I mean, I definitely share the same sentiments here with you guys, and I'm really excited. And you know, like I think like the future is definitely very bright. It's definitely like we are in a different market conditions nowadays, right? So I mean, talking about that, so Sam, what have you guys been focusing on, in the past 6 months? What was your priority? What were you building that you see will have a need like in the next 3 months, let's say, like regardless of market conditions? What do you want to get
Yeah,
out there?
I think I would focus on just one word even, and it's standardization across the board. And I think YGG, your guys' internal engineering and scholar teams have kind of seen as we drive to like really abstract what it means to play inside of a Web3 game. Like what are the core components that you need when you go into each one of these economies? And we've spent a ton of time trying to, ask ourselves and build the engineering around the question of, what is the actual functional abstraction of a Web3 game and how do we bring that into every gaming ecosystem? And so where we are right now is we're in a position, frankly, where as these massive games come online over the next, 12, 24 months, we're going to be able to onboard them very, very quickly. And so you will be able to, both have your Axies next to your Genopets, next to your Fancy Birds, next to your Crypto Unicorns, all of that in one consolidated framework right next to your Illuvium, Blocklords, and Shrapnel, right? So as soon as all these big AAA games come out, you can expect to see those in there. And it all goes back to this idea of standardization. And how do you approach common standards in a space like Web3 gaming, which is just so complex with so many different games and so many different types of activities that you can do. So it's all about standardization for us.
Definitely, 100%, 100%. So we have actually a few questions right now from the community. We have boring. Boring. She's asking boring. So what can we expect from the partnership with Kapital DAO? Let's say in the next few months.
Yeah, so over the next few months, we are basically working to support any game that YGG needs on the roster. Where YGG is deploying in a big way, we are going to be there to support. And what that means is that, YGG will benefit from extremely improved operational smoothness, right? You won't have to worry about managing 50 different Excel sheets across 50 different games. When YGG needs a game, Kapital DAO has got their back, right? Like that's the message we want to get across every time. And so anytime that you guys have a big partnership with a game, that also means that we're going to be looking to come in behind you guys and support that game in exactly the same way.
Gotcha. And I mean, from all of these, let's say all of these games that are coming out, like how does the Cap token like plug in here?
Yeah, so the Cap token is really interesting. We take a pretty hardline approach to Web3, and what that means is that the ecosystem supports the Cap token in the way where every single transaction, when we turn on billing, will be either charged in the Cap token or converted into the Cap token if it's charged in a different game currency. So what that means is that everything from fees on the platform, any transaction fee, as well as any token deployment fee or any ads or sponsorships as well, all of that eventually gets converted back into the Cap token. And the Cap token is really special because it basically allows the community to vote directly on certain proposals. And you can already see a couple of these that are over up on our snapshot page. And so they basically enable the community to execute these proposals, which are both on-chain and off-chain types of permission sets. And so the Cap token itself, really does capture that value from the Kapital DAO's total ecosystem. And we're really, really excited, frankly, that we're sharing that with the community, and the community has the chance, to participate alongside us in all these things.
Gotcha. So everyone else here on the Discord right now, we still have a couple of minutes left with Sam, so make sure to shoot those questions down. And yeah, don't forget, while you're at it, shout out to everyone who's tuned in on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So make sure to hit that subscribe and follow. And if you guys have friends who weren't able to make it tonight, if they're at the YGG Christmas party here in the PH, make sure to send them those links, because we're going to be it's already going to be automatically uploaded, and they can watch it in their own free time. But yeah, I mean, I think I've covered most of my questions for you, Sam. But like one last thing before I hand over the mic to Saratomi. So I mean, let's talk about esports. So in the evolving guild system, or the evolving guild model, like one of the main focuses that we've seen Guild Stake is putting more time and efforts into building out like their own esports departments, building out their own esports team. So we've seen this in Axie Infinity, and like from a personal experience, back just a few weeks ago in the Axie Open Manila. This is one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, like Axie Infinity tournaments to date. And in that tournament, I've actually seen, these different guilds coming in their, in their guild jerseys for the very first time. So if you were there, you'd see like different pockets of these different communities having their own corner in the tournament venue. And it reminds me of the early days of Counter-Strike, where like it wasn't as big on a competitive level, but when everyone has seen the potential and has seen the growth of these communities, like they started trying to actually like set and put their names out there. So they come in their jerseys, they're proud to represent all of these guilds. But for Kapital DAO, like how do you see you building out or helping contribute to the Web3 esports ecosystem?
Yeah, and so it kind of ties into two big themes here. And I think first of all is that esports as a field and a sector is easily one of the most open and approachable, hobbies and, kind of talented spaces that you can participate in as a person globally. So it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter, like, can you throw a football fast? Anyone can play esports. And so we think the market opportunity for esports is just massive. And as the digital economy, as we become more and more digitized, as the whole world moves in kind of this one direction towards putting everything online and these digital assets, we think that esports is going to have a huge part to play, and it will become kind of the de facto norm for these growing generations who are looking for a creative outlet for their talent. So where we stand poised to kind of support that is we're both obviously sitting on the Web3 side, where we support the asset management across those different games, because even if it is a pure esport, you may still have certain assets inside of the game. Like imagine if you're playing Warzone or something in Modern Warfare right now, and each one of your gun parts were an NFT that your guild could potentially loan out to you. Those are the types of things that we approach, right? And so we want to be there to support hard esports games, as well as some of these more casual RPG games equally in both directions. We see the esports category as huge and growing very, very quickly. And so we're going to be there just as well as we're going to be in the RPG and the casual side.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess it's gonna be sooner than later. Me seeing YGG having, or basically just using Kapital DAO for our own My Pet Hooligan esports team then. Because I mean, I definitely see it. So let's say our head of esports, Mike, for example, instead of going through like all the assets that we have and managing it, by managing it personally, like he can have his own dedicated account in Kapital DAO where he's just managing like all the assets of the esports players, right? Like
That's
whatever
correct.
whatever these guys earn from tournaments can go straight there. Whatever NFTs they get rewarded with, you're going to be going straight to his own dashboard. And it's very replicable across whether you're a big guild, you're a small guild, or you're starting out your own esports team. And yeah, I mean it is there and it is usable right now. It's a matter of which games are going to be using it first, right?
We love to think about this in terms of teams as well. We think that's a really fun dynamic. So even within the app, right, like if you are a massive asset manager or even a small asset manager, you can spin up different teams and assign a manager to each team. So you could have, YGG esports team red, blue, green, right? And they can have their different rankings and they can all have their own segregated asset pool. And each one of those can operate independently. And so we think that actually fits in very well with YGG's broader sub-DAO model. And you guys are really driving towards, control at the decentralized level. We think that leaning into ideas like what does an esports team need and what do these teams need from an asset management perspective, those are the big key questions that we're looking to answer for you guys.
Definitely sounds good. Definitely sounds good. Now, obviously, I could keep talking to you all day, Sam. I could keep asking you lots of questions. I'm not sure if Sedano, we have any further questions. Do we have any questions from the community?
Yeah, I think we're good. We're good for now. So everyone else here on the AMA discussion, if you still have questions and apparently you won't be able to answer it like after the AMA, like drop it there, and we are going to be asking it ourselves to the Kapital DAO community and make sure that you have those answers ready for you guys. But again, yeah, I mean, like on my end, Sam, thank you so much for your time, man. And like this AMA has been a long time running, and we're very happy that we were able to kick it in just right before Christmas season. But yeah, I know I don't want to put any pressure on you, but like, or do you have any Christmas gifts or goodies for us in terms of Alpha, or just basically what can you share with us and for us to bring out for our holiday events and parties?
Sure. So I did already spoil one, which is that we will be looking to integrate Genopets here momentarily and hopefully support you guys very, very strongly on the back end there. And then I think even more importantly, right, what I would share from kind of a broader perspective is that the games that we are seeing and that we're chatting with and we are actively working to integrate on the back end right now are seriously impressive. Like everyone should be very, very excited about this next 12 months of Web3 gaming, because from what we can see, the future is extremely bright over here. We're looking at games that we think will actually be able to pull in some of those 3.5 billion gamers from across the world and really help Web3 gaming, take center stage here as onboarding the next millions of people into Web3. So we're in a good spot right now, and we're just stoked to bring you guys all those fancy games as soon as they come online.
Awesome
Really,
stuff.
really awesome. Fantastic. Well, look, definitely make sure to follow Kapital DAO on Twitter. Make sure to follow YGG on Twitter. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or wherever you're watching on Twitter. Wherever you're watching us, please make sure to spread the word far and wide. Thanks so much, Sam. Obviously, as always, thanks to Dano. And yeah, it's been a fantastic show, and we'll definitely have to have you at some point in the next year to kind of catch up and see how things have developed and changed. And have a fantastic Christmas and a New Year, Sam.
I love it. Well, no, big thanks to both you guys, Sedano, Saratobi, the whole YGG community. Thank you for the warm welcome. We are excited to keep supporting you guys as we all kind of drive forward into a very bright Web3 gaming future here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas, and see you guys all soon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much, guys.